Hey y'all, this one's not going to be a normal video. I'm thinking of potentially releasing video essays like this one every now and then in the future, so let me know if you like this format. Think of any transit agency in the American Southeast. Chances are a lot of you just thought of MARTA, right? Or maybe Miami's Metrorail and Metromover. What if I asked you to think of a southern transit agency with a service area spanning wider than that of the DC Metrorail? What about an agency that operates bus, rail, and ferry transit lines? You might be surprised to learn that Hampton Roads Transit, or HRT for short, an agency serving Tidewater, Virginia and communities as far apart as Williamsburg and Virginia Beach, a span of over 50 miles, fits this description perfectly. North of the James River, on the Virginia Peninsula, commonly just called the Peninsula by locals, HRT operates solely buses, for now. South of the James, HRT operates many bus routes in addition to the Tide Light Rail in Norfolk, a system with really good bones that just needs to see some meaningful expansion. It also operates one of my favorite transit lines I've ever ridden, the Elizabeth River Ferry, which runs between the independent cities of Norfolk and Portsmouth. So why am I making a whole video in a completely different format about HRT? Well, I think Hampton Roads Transit is a system worth watching, as with a few improvements, I believe it has the potential to become a model transit agency to which similar regions can look for guidance on how to structure their own transit networks. It's considering a potentially large expansion to its light rail network, although I think they're too excited about bus rapid transit for their own good. It serves wide, sprawling suburban landscapes with a variety of bus routes. It connects downtowns to each other via express bus routes with low $2 fares. It serves an airport, albeit the less popular one in the region, Newport News Williamsburg International. And HRT, as I mentioned before, has even realized, partially, the unique coastal geography of its region and accordingly operates a ferry. It even recently began studying routes for a ferry connecting the peninsula to Norfolk across the very wide Hampton Roads, for which the region is named. With a few expansions and improvements, Hampton Roads Transit could truly become a regional model to which other regions of similar density and size could look for inspiration, if it attempted to emulate a good, effective transit network. Herein lies a massive problem, however. HRT is looking for inspiration a little too close to home. The most timely and major expansion project within Hampton Roads Transit is the Connecting Chesapeake project, which aims to better integrate the city of Chesapeake, located south of Norfolk, into the regional transit network, with an emphasis on connections to the Tide Light Rail. The Connecting Chesapeake project is considering 3 transit modes for this integration: Express Bus, which HRT already knows how to do fairly well, Bus Rapid Transit, or BRT, and Light Rail. Now you might be thinking, isn't the simplest way to connect to the light rail by extending the light rail network? The answer to that question is a resounding yes. Running trains on a potential Chesapeake extension of the light rail would be the simplest way to provide a one-seat ride from Chesapeake to downtown Norfolk, home to many downtown offices and other points of interest. No transfers, no stress of missing your connection, and no threat of getting stuck in car traffic, of which Hampton Roads has its fair share. This sounds great, so why isn't Connecting Chesapeake simply asking where to put this light rail extension? Remember when I said HRT was taking inspiration from transit a little closer to its own location? Instead of looking to geographically similar, albeit much larger, regions such as Baltimore, Philadelphia, or New York City with their coastal locations, large geographic areas, and existing rail networks, HRT is looking, of all places, to Richmond, Virginia. Notably, they have been eyeing the GRTC Pulse, the only existing BRT system in Virginia south of the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area. I'll be doing a video on the Metroway in the future, and oh boy do I have opinions. But the Pulse is a true BRT system using at least some dedicated lanes along part of its route and higher platforms. And this isn't meant to be an attack on BRT, but I view this as a failure of Hampton Roads to think big and to look to better transit networks for inspiration. I would like to think they don't have tunnel vision that only wants to consider BRT as a viable option, but the way in which information is presented in the Connecting Chesapeake media I've seen seems to point to this. HRT needs to realize they have something amazing Richmond doesn't: existing light rail infrastructure. HRT operates the Tide Light Rail, which currently runs from just west of downtown Norfolk to the city's eastern limits. The right-of-way continues, albeit with no light rail tracks or stations, all the way into Virginia Beach, reaching close to its popular waterfront on an abandoned rail line. The Tide was originally supposed to serve the areas adjacent to this right-of-way and reach oceanfront Virginia Beach, but plans were scratched after public opinion dictated otherwise in a referendum. In fact, at least theoretically, this plan could still be executed relatively easily, granted politics cooperate, since this old rail right-of-way still exists. HRT, in comparison to Richmond, has no current BRT lines. Since HRT already knows how to build and operate light rail, they could likely use the knowledge they gained from the planning, construction, and operation of the Tide to build and operate a nice new line at Chesapeake instead of dipping their toes into completely unfamiliar water. HRT needs to realize their competitive advantage in light rail. The Tide currently boasts 15-minute frequencies. It's not the best for rapid transit, but it's at least consistent, and from what I've seen, the Tide is also fairly good at not bunching. Vehicles stay pretty well spaced apart, and from my own experience, don't seem to experience too many delays. The trains pretty much just come when they're supposed to. This is unlike a certain other light rail system I'm thinking of, which experiences wild inconsistencies in train frequency. I'm looking at you, MTA Maryland Baltimore Metro Light Rail Link. Yes, I will argue here that the Tide, at least in terms of quality and reliability of service, but not service coverage, is actually better than Baltimore's light rail. Seriously, just compare waiting for the light rail in Norfolk with trains every 15 minutes to waiting for the light rail in Baltimore, where you might get 3 trains back to back to back, with the following train being half an hour behind them, regardless of what the schedule's supposed to be. The Tide just seems more reliable. It really does have good bones. If HRT can run a light rail line better than the Maryland MTA can, they must be doing something right. Light rail would provide higher capacity than buses. Unless HRT went with really long and extremely frequent buses, which I doubt they would do, the Tide runs large light rail vehicles more frequently than most of HRT's bus routes. I understand that if a BRT line was built, frequency would hopefully improve, but there's still the issue of capacity. Rail vehicles can be coupled together and only require one operator, while buses can only have so many articulated segments before a second bus is needed. These arguments, however, are nothing new. I'll use Washington, D.C. as a hypothetical. Traffic can be awful, especially during rush hour, as you may know if you've ever been there. Thankfully, the Metro handles a large number of trips taken in the Washington area, leading to a lower percentage of trips being taken by a car. Now imagine rush hour with the same amount of commuters as before. If the Metro suddenly didn't exist, it would be an absolute nightmare. So many people would likely resort to driving, putting more cars on the road, leading to more traffic and less longer travel times. Some of these people could take the bus, but buses have a much lower capacity than trains, and traffic would likely still be bad, perhaps causing even the buses to get stuck in traffic. A higher capacity transportation option would be needed to help move that many people. And what has higher capacity than the bus? A light rail vehicle. And yes, I'm bringing the MTA back into this, but just look at the size of the Purple Line vehicles that will be used on the Washington region's first light rail line. They can hold 430 people. Good luck fitting that many on a bus. This begs the question though, is a higher capacity needed between Norfolk and Chesapeake? Well, Hampton Roads Transit certainly thinks so, since that's at least some of the reasoning behind the Connecting Chesapeake project. If you want to see it for yourself, check out the project's website, which is linked in the description, and other related documents. While writing the script for this video, the alignment alternatives for this transit line were actually narrowed down. I was going to talk about how if an eastern alignment connecting to the eastern end of the Tide instead of downtown Norfolk was chosen, light rail would make even more sense. The 4 remaining options, however, all swing west towards downtown Norfolk, with 1 serving it directly and 3 terminating at Norfolk State University Station on light rail. I realize, though, that my argument will still apply here. In fact, HRT just made arguing for light rail much easier. If downtown Norfolk is the final destination for the majority of the people on this transit line, the only way on most of the potential alignments to provide a 1-seat ride is with an extension of the light rail. If an express bus or BRT route was created for any of the proposals not directly serving downtown, a transfer to the light rail or another bus would be necessary. Plus, the main bus transfer point in this part of Norfolk is the Downtown Norfolk Transit Center, a modern transit bus hub with lots of capacity that's located, as the name would suggest, in downtown Norfolk. It doesn't make sense to terminate a high-capacity bus line far from this transit center, as making a connection between the future Chesapeake line and a local or express bus route out of the transit center would likely necessitate a short trip on the light rail or another bus. A light rail line, however, could simply interline with the existing Tide route through downtown Norfolk, with no transfers needed. And yes, I'm aware the Tide does not directly serve the downtown Norfolk Transit Center, but it gets within a short walk away. Regardless, even if someone was transferring to a bus out of the transit center, they could simply stay on the same light rail vehicle all the way from Chesapeake and walk the short distance to the downtown Norfolk Transit Center. Running light rail trains from Chesapeake along the west end of the existing Tide route would also have the added benefit of increasing the frequency and capacity of the existing light rail line in downtown Norfolk. As for the proposal that does directly serve the downtown Norfolk Transit Center, a bus would provide a 1-seat ride from Chesapeake, but not to anywhere beyond the transit center, which would mean that anyone traveling further would still need to transfer either to the light rail or another bus. As I mentioned before, this video is not meant to be an attack on BRT, but there is a lot that can go wrong with it. I've never ridden the Pulse in Richmond, although it seems like a good line, but I have ridden WMATA's Metroway. My last Metroway trip was plagued with constant red lights in the busway, which is where buses are supposed to have signal priority, and it was painfully slow. I'm not saying this would necessarily happen if HRT went with BRT for this route, but it could. If Hampton Roads Transit wants a fast, high-capacity transit line with easy connections to the tide, light rail is the way to go. Light rail vehicles could simply run along the existing tide tracks through downtown Norfolk and turn south at NSU Station, which most of the current proposals list as this line's northern terminus, onto a light rail branch to Chesapeake. If the alignment more directly serving the downtown Norfolk Transit Center and the rest of downtown Norfolk is chosen, light rail tracks could be laid from the transit center south to Chesapeake, allowing for an interchange with the existing tide road at Civic Plaza Station. In most proposed alignments, BRT and express bus options would fall short in not providing a one-seat ride between Chesapeake and downtown Norfolk. Besides, light rail is a transit mode that HRT already knows how to operate well, and I really hope HRT goes with the light rail expansion for Chesapeake. Finally, another reason I have for making this video is that I believe not enough people are talking about the Connecting Chesapeake project. Sure, it's not DC, New York, Boston, or Philly, but Hampton Roads is one of the most populous areas of Virginia, and I'd love to see some more transit advocates become familiar with the project and share their thoughts. If you live in Hampton Roads, get involved. HRT has a survey out right now to see which alignment will be most helpful to transit riders, and I'll even link to it in the description. If you live, work, or go to school here, share your opinions with HRT, and if you want, talk about the project in the comments of this video. I know this is a little bit of a different video than you'd normally see from me, but I think this project has the potential to make HRT's transit network even better. HRT could become the inspiration other regions need for expanding their own transit networks. Yes, Hampton Roads is very much full of suburban sprawl, but HRT does a respectable job of connecting the suburban and urban communities that make up this region together. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed, consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. I'm willing to consider making another video on this project that dives deeper into the specific alignments under consideration for this transit line. So let me know if y'all want to see something like that in the future. And with that, I'll see y'all in the next one.